You saw those headlines drop, Ben. Were you surprised by that? You saw that coming? What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I think we had heard a lot of chatter that both CEOs were working with the administration, trying to understand what it would need to take to overcome some of these regulatory barriers and have some products that they can now ship back into China. I think they've both been very, very vocal about how important that market is for them to the terms of their business. Jensen, in particular, talking about the hit that revenue that it would be. So I think we firmly believed, right, something would work itself out in some capacity. I think the details were just, how scaled down do these chips need to be? That's sort of the architectural changes that needed to be made that got worked out, and I think now they've got a clear path as to what products, what architecture, and now let's hope it sticks, right? Let's hope that this isn't something that comes back in 6 to 8 months and then gets the rug pulled out from that. This regulatory and this process is actually going to stick going forward.
How big is that China opportunity for Nvidia and AMD?
I mean, for Nvidia, it's been in the multiples of billions. I think Jensen has publicly said he thinks that's a $50 billion market. And I think, again, if you come from the perspective that he's been saying, and Lisa Su has been saying this too of AMD, I mean, everybody in semis has been saying that we're going to see a total refresh of infrastructure. That's trillions of dollars everywhere. Every country, right, needs to overturn their infrastructure in the age of AI, and China's not, separated from that. And so I think that's the opportunity, is that for them, you've got every cloud player there. You've got increasing, numbers of AI services in China that needs new infrastructure, and so that's a significant business. That's not 50 billion year one. That's growing over time, but that's the size of the infrastructure market, and I do think that could grow as well in China.
What does this news mean, Ben, for competition in China? Competition with the local teams, the Huawei's.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been long talked about what Huawei's doing, right, in terms of manufacturing there and bringing some SKUs. And there had been some chatter that it's competitive, but I think anybody really technical knew that it really wasn't going to be that competitive, and that you were hearing, the likes of Baidu and Tencent and others really still wanting what they could get from Nvidia, which is, again, it's not going to be the latest and greatest, that we have competitive globally, but it's still better, right? Largely better than a lot that's going on there, especially even from Huawei. So I think they'll still try. There'll still be some local competition, but I think by and large, this market opens up a lot of new opportunities for Nvidia and AMD.
What did you make of that argument? You would hear this, Ben, that the American export controls were in some way encouraging, motivating the Chinese companies to up their game?
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been China for a long time, right? They've been trying to do more local silicon. They've been trying to do more manufacturing locally on leading edge process. I don't think it's been any secret that they wanted semiconductor or technology independence from the rest of the world. I think that's just also a lot harder than people make it out to be. Like, that's not an easy thing. There's a lot of IP that goes into that that's not owned by China. So I still think they'll still invest in that, right? They're not going to give up on that strategy. But I think as long as we, American companies or global companies, continue to compete and innovate, they're still going to have a role to play in China. And I think as long as the door stays open for them to do so with both administrations, and that's going to continue to mean a competitive business there, also for American companies.
When you think about Jensen Huang and Lisa Su, Ben, you think about obviously very, very well respected and talented executives. When you see headlines like this, what does it also tell you about their skills as diplomats, as folks who are really seem to be very clearly capable of working those halls of power?
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is a really important point just about how important the CEO role is, right, in these organizations, to not just be operationally efficient or visionary or strategic for their company, but to be able to play those, roles that they need to do in democratic ways, right? And I still think when you think about like who's best positioned to run a company, or whether, somebody should be in or out, like that's got to play a role. Your ability to manage that business with a very diplomatic way. And I think that's been something that every major big tech CEO has had to do. And I think they're doing it really, really well, navigating what is a really challenging time, right, in terms of both regulations, tariffs, and the policies that they want that needs to be pro-business or pro for their company.
Let's talk about another tech executive well known as being an executive and a diplomat. That would be Tim Cook, his company. Apple's saying it's going to invest $500 million into MP Materials. As a longtime Apple watcher, you saw that and thought what?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Apple has taken every opportunity through the history of this company, dating back to even, the iPod, where they've bought storage and memory up in bulk, again, because prices of those things can fluctuate. So I think anytime that you can come in and buy in bulk, something that gives you a fixed price, that you can control that pricing for yourselves going forward, they're going to make that investment every time, right? And in this term, right, whatever rare earths they need in order to manufacture, right, whether that's parts of product or batteries or whatever that is, those are the things that they'll secure up if they can, and it makes a lot of sense because again, in supply chain management and being able to keep costs down, that's a very strategic move.
Let's stick with Cook. You saw how there was an analyst, made some waves, put out a note, provocative, asked, listen, maybe it's time for a change in the C-suite. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the sentiment is really just coming from, wanting to see more modern leaders or people who are coming up through the ranks that haven't been there or might bring a fresh take to the business. And I think, again, right, the reality is if there was somebody better, like if Tim Cook or others thought that there was somebody better within Apple to run and move this company forward, I think they would make that change. Like, I don't think this is a matter of pride or or stubbornness. I think he's still the right guy. The investors believe he's the right guy. The board believes he's the right guy. And in fact, I believe a lot of the executives believe that he's the right guy. And so I think that's a key part of them keeping him in position. But now this, again, comes back to a new era of execution, which again, he is now overseeing more of those businesses.
Yeah, and Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, I saw reported, Cook is staying put. On the question of Apple and AI, Ben, there are investors who are disappointed with where they're at. You can see that in the stock and how it's reacted so far this year. We're down about nearly 20%. What do you make of that? How do you think about Apple's role in this AI market right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the best ways to just understand, I think, where we're going here is more not in one technology or one winner is going to win everything here. I think people like to bucket OpenAI or Google or others and say like these are the ones that are going to win. Like this isn't a winner take all market, right? And that's in today's era of just querying, right, ChatGPT or Gemini to do some search. We're moving to an era which is far more agentic, right? Which means that you're going to have an agent. That agent is going to work on your behalf, and it's going to understand, you, Josh, your preferences, your likes, where you're at in the world, your location, like intimate levels of details of you, and then go work with other agents, Google's agents, Amazon agents, Meta's agent, et cetera. So you'll have this one thing, and all those agents will have domain expertise. And I think that's Apple's goal is to have domain expertise, again, on the customer, on their ecosystem. And that's something that they can easily do, right? They don't need to boil the ocean. They can partner with OpenAI or Gemini if you just want to search the internet. But the key is having a smart, intelligent, and intimate agent that knows you, that can go and work on your behalf for actions, do predictive things, do things on your behalf. And I think that's their broader strategy. And it's just doing what they can do well, which is create a much more agent or much more friendly customer experience when it comes to AI.
And can they get this done in-house in Cupertino, Ben? Or, and I ask you because I've had analysts come on the show and tell me, it is time for Apple to bring out the checkbook. They're going to have to make a big deal, a big AI deal. I had one analyst tell me it should be Perplexity.
Yeah.
That would, historically Apple does deals, but they're smaller. I think
Right.
the biggest one that was biggest ever was Beats for $3 billion.
Right.
What do you make of that line of questioning?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's two things, right? Apple always doesn't just look at technology, they look at culture. Is this a cultural fit? So that's also a question you've got to ask, is who could they buy that fits in to the broader culture of Apple? But I think, again, I like Perplexity, I use Perplexity. They're a little bit of a different company. You still need a big foundational model, even if you're using Perplexity. So that doesn't entirely solve Apple's problem. I think there's actually some smaller acquisitions that can be made. You pointed out Mark Gurman actually said that Mistral was being looked at, which is a large foundational model. I think that would make a ton of sense. And there really are a lot of startups coming out of the Valley doing really interesting things. And there's some of those teams and those individuals and their technology might be a better fit for Apple. But again, I think they don't necessarily need this big world internet foundational model. I think if they've got this agent that's got domain expertise and that's about their ecosystem, their software, you the customer and your preferences, and that agent can go work with other agents, which is how the world we're moving to in agentic AI, I think they have everything they need to do on that vision. The question is, do they want to do more than that?
One last question, Ben. I know investors are excited about AI and the street is excited. How excited are consumers about AI and AI features? I ask because I know you survey consumers. I mean, is that top of mind if I'm thinking about shopping around for a new phone? Is it the AI features or no? Is it about the processor and the battery? Is it some combination?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be all about the features, right? And I think, again, at the end of the day, we should just think about AI as software. It's a software feature. These are features that add value to your life, that you can either search the internet, do queries, summary reports, do writing, whatever it is, right? Or an agent, right? Go book travel on your behalf or find products on your behalf and do that work for you. Having those tools built into our operating system and our apps, I think it's the feature set of value that people will get excited about. How we make money on this, and that's what we're going to see right over the next couple of years of what consumers pay for, if it's advertising. But I think these features add a ton of functionality and usefulness. They're going to save people time and make them be more productive. And at the end of the day, I think that's what they're going to like. But they're not going to think of it as like, I've got an AI. It's like, these are just great software features that make my life better.